What's up, brothers and sisters? Welcome to the Meaning Stream. It is time for everybody's favorite lo-fi lecture series, Meaning Crisis and Chill. Make some noise. If you're locked in live, make some noise. Smash that like, post that link in the Discord, post that link in the group chat, send it to your mom, get all the homies in here. If you're on the replay and you want to skip the preamble, there should be a timestamp in the description. You can hit that and skip straight to the action, or you can enjoy the preamble. Everybody loves the preamble, don't they? Yeah. Bam, 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 bam. Din. What up, doe? Welcome one and all. Welcome one and all. There's the MEANINGWAVE thing. This stream of meaning, that's the one. I know what the show is called. I've only been doing it for, what is it? 200 and a lot. 289 days. There you go. Day 289 in Stream of Meaning. Akira The Don still can't remember the name of his stream. That's okay, don't worry about me. I got this, I know what I'm doing. Welcome to Mazatlantis, everybody. Don's back, alright. Make some noise with your hieroglyphs, make some noise. Hey, you could even use words. You could use words if you're locked in life. You could use words, you could express yourself verbally, or you could use the fine array of hieroglyphs at your disposal. I would suggest you do that right now. As I throw the chat up on the screen. That's what they say, isn't it? I say that. Hurrah! Switch it over from Twitch to YouTube, because this morning we're on Twitch and this evening we're on YouTube, like we do every day. We start the day on Twitch and we end the day on YouTube. Very epic. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, you turn your back on them, that is retarded. Yeah. Excuse me. Escusodoghi, that's what they say in Wales. Good news. I got a Polish coat of arms. My dad found it. No, he didn't find it, his sister found it. She did all the legwork. She's been doing all the hard work in researching our family. The Polish side of our family, that is, you know. Some of you know my grandfather was a Polish man who ended up here. Not here, he didn't end up here, I ended up here. He ended up in the UK. Anyway, I was very pleased about this discovery because, you know, I'm a Taurus. I'm a charging bull. And our family coat of arms is a blinking bull in it. It's a great big powerful bull with a big ring through his nose. It's got some other stuff on it as well, but that's the centerpiece, you know? Which makes sense because what with me being, you know, the figurehead of the family, obviously. Yeah! Anyway, welcome one and all. I might put it on a t-shirt. Might get it as a tattoo, you know. Nice to have a coat of arms. Boom, boom! What's up, TJMKRK says, my bro Akira inspires me, lol. What's the lol for? What's so funny about that? Surely it should be, my bro Akira inspires me, full stop. You know, put some power behind this statement. Don't leave yourself an exit with a lol. You don't need no lol exit. You need to make a definitive statement. My boy Akira inspires me. You could always add to be great, or to do useful things in the world. You know? One of those. To be the best version of myself. To go to meaningwave.com and buy a hoodie. Yo! I had a photo shoot today. I shot a week's worth of thumbnails. Different outfit for each one. I got all this new Meaning Wave merch. I got, like, check it out today. I got my beautiful my Marilyn Monroe Meaning Wave, you know, generally miserable hoodie. It's so cool. Your boy be rocking pink like Cameron in 2003. When was it? When was Cameron doing pink? I think it was actually a lot. I mean, he was doing it in the 90s as well, wasn't it? Cameron just stayed doing pink the whole time. Shouts out to Cameron. Cameron, he got blackballed by Jay-Z for being cocky, stealing his beat. Yeah! I don't know why that amuses me, but it does. It amuses me to think of Cameron and Jay-Z having their childish disagreements. Shouts out to everybody locked in, of course. Who was here first? YouTube Hero Alex, what a guy. Sedgetedge was here early, Dave Owen was here early, Fool Killer was here early. Sedgetedge says, I finished 282, now I'm ready to meet Aristotle. Because that's what we're doing, is Meaning, Crisis, and Chill with John Vervaeke, John, and Akira The Don. We're going through the history of the evolution of meaning, the evolution of consciousness, you might say, the evolution of recorded human civilization. And we're at a point where there seems to be some kind of crisis of meaning. Well, if we're to fix this crisis of meaning, we certainly need to know where we've come from. You know? If you don't know where you're from, how do you know where you're at? Huh? How do you know that? You don't. That's how. That's what we're doing today, and we're going to get pretty much straight into it. We're going to boom right up in there. You know, before we do that, though, we need to do a bit of like smashing. We need to do a bit of link distributing. Susan doesn't want to seem to send out our notifications to very many people. You know, so we've got to get a few more people in here, and we need to do the international high five. International high five must be done because, well, it would just be weird if we didn't, wouldn't it? And by this point, I suspect a whole bunch of you are reliant upon the energy. You need the energy. Word XP says, will you do Socrates, Plato, like you have Marcus? Baby, you already know. You already know we got a gang of upcoming righteousness. We got a gang of upcoming wisdom here at MEANINGWAVE HQ. I'm super excited for 2021, for what 2021 is going to be bringing musically, and the rest. You know. Oh my goodness! But yes, of course. Come now. Of course, Epic Tartars is coming. Seneca. I like the idea of snicker. You know, just give him 2 syllables. Snick. Or 1. He could just become snick. 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 I like that. How about that? What do you reckon? Woo! Great day, woo. Great day, woo. Great day, woo. Hey, here's a question for you. International High 5 o'clock. What upcoming MEANINGWAVE record are you most looking forward to? Maybe it's one that's been announced, maybe it's one you're just hoping is going to happen. Which MEANINGWAVE record are you most looking forward to? Shouts out to this instrumental. This is me in 2004. I was on a kind of rap industrial tip for this just for this song. Just this one song, you know. Just this one song. Basically, Kanye ended up doing this, 15 years later, and they called him a genius. I did this 2004. Gang, WMIV says, I'm looking forward to more Stoics. Fool Killer in Maryland is looking forward to the unreleased Joseph Campbell album, of course. Wayfire is looking forward to the next JBP. Hurrah! You won't be having to wait too long. D-Man bought a digital BMI scale to get in shape. What are you picking it up and putting it down again? Repeatedly. Robert Easy says, sounds like Wolverine's claws popping out. Like, snick. Snicked. He's got a T at the end of it. That is snicked, isn't it? It's got a T. Snicked. Oh, I forgot about that bit. D-Man Tri-State looking forward to a new Golden album. A Golden album. Ooh, well, like a Goldtron or just Golden vibes? Golden General Zach Hutchinson. Long, prolonged derangement of the senses in order to obtain the unknown. You already know. WordXP Toronto, Canada. Most looking forward to the new JBP wave in January. Hurrah, you won't be looking forward for very long. Soon you'll be looking backward. Going, wow, that was great. Well, I'm really glad that happened. Hello, Melinda. Melinda is looking forward to meditations too. Yeah. Me too, Melinda. Ooh. Me too. Mason, Schnarf, Lionel. Shut up, you. That was one of the first things I ever heard on the internet. There were some outtakes from Thundercats. Did you ever hear those? And it was like the actors just swearing at each other. So good. That's what the internet's for, you know. WordXP, Toronto. I already read you. Robert Easley, always looking forward to more Watts Wave. Do you know what? I think I won't do any more Alan Watts. I think I've done enough. Joking! Did your heart miss a beat? Did you go? I hope no one crashed their car. I could have kept that rocking a little longer, but I was aware of the potential fatalities involved in such a statement. Zach Sal's at Boston, Massachusetts. I'm looking forward to Rax Wave, Dune Wave 2. Dune Wave 2. Yeah, me too. Robert Easley, always looking forward to more Watts Wave. I read you. Patrick Tunnel, Pope John Paul II, meaning Wave. Which one was he? Was he the one who was around when I was a kid? Was he the one who was on all the t-shirts that said, I like the Pope smokes dope? That guy. Or was it the one who got killed after about a week because he was trying to expose the Satanists? Remember that guy? There was a Pope. Remember in the 60s, they were just straight up killing everybody. Straight up killing everybody. They don't seem to kill him as much anymore, not the high-profile ones anyway, because of the martyrdom effect, you know? They just kind of cancel them or whatever. Or co-opt them. Or, I don't know. Yo, did you see the last... the last guy to share a cell with your boy Epstein? Gone. Dead. Guess what killed him? Guess what? Guess what? According to the newspaper articles, the headlines are all that he died of Tom Hanks, right? But then if you read the articles, right to the end, it says, it has not been confirmed that he died of Tom Hanks. No physicians have confirmed this. But someone said he was coughing a bit. People are crazy. They just straight up put something in a headline, and then the story will be completely different. These people are hilarious. Hey, what are the chances? Tom Hanks. Robert Easley, always looking for some more. Well, I read that already. What is wrong with my readings today? What's up, Kyla? What up, Maria? What up, Mad Horse? What up, Mason? Shouts out to Newgrounds. Mad Horse 21, Synthwave with Rogan, Jocko and Goggins. Mikhail, what's cracking? Sativa, what's cracking? Says, I sneaked into my stepdad's wine cellar when I was younger. And you slopped out of there, didn't you? Boom! D-Man says, Golden Age plus Goldtron, yeah. All gold, everything. Shouts out to T. James. T. James! What's up, Word XP? Says, got me. Oh, my bad. Trick my squeeze. Mass City, Akira was cracking. We, that's who, we. D-Man says, you just gave my cat a stroke saying no more What's-Wave. My bad. Maria Lizak says, he was the Polish Pope. Yeah, that guy. That one. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah. I don't know much about that Pope. I wasn't paying attention to popes when I was little. I don't know why. I mean, I was Catholic and Polish. Polish and Catholic, and yet I did not pay much attention to that Pope. I don't know what his vibe was. I don't know what he was on about. I just know he was on T-shirts. And the T-shirts used to say, I like the Pope smokes dope. And I was thinking about that this morning. Akira. The Don. Mean. Darren, Louisiana, looking forward to the next synthwave. What, you mean the next time we do a synthwave DJ set? Or you're looking forward to an album that sounds synthwavy? Sagittarius, Pope Gregory of the calendar, etc. made it real official and formal and just the Pope of Rome. What? All right, that's enough of that. International High 5 o'clock. And we're just going to get into it, baby. We're going to get right into it. Three, 2, 1. High. Nice to be me. Sweet to be sour, too nice to be me. Sweet to be sour, too nice to be me. Trying to change the world. I'm a plot and scheme. Sweet to be sour, too nice to be me. Sweet to be sour, too nice to be me. Sweet to be sour, too nice to be me. Trying to change the world. I'm a plot and scheme. I love this beat. This was from what record was this? This was my Unkillable Thunderchrist mixtape, which I think was like ACD 28. This was a beat from that. Swag. I was on my electro team. You could break dance to this, huh? Woo. Me. Sweet to be sour, too nice to be me. Sweet to be sour, too nice to be me. Trying to change the world, I'm a plotting scheme. Sweet to be sour, too nice to be me. Sweet to be sour, too nice to be me. Sweet to be sour, too nice to be me. Trying to change the world, I'm a plotting scheme. Well, back in those days, we just put things on SoundCloud. We didn't care about streaming platforms. And that meant I would sample at will. I just sampled whatever I wanted and didn't care. Different time. All right, baby, let's get it. Without further ado, zero further ado, smash that like kindly. And let's get after it.
Welcome back to Awakening from the Meaning Crisis. So last time we discussed the important and foundational work of Plato. The grammar of Western civilization is basically made up of the Bible and Plato. We'll keep coming back to both of those repeatedly in certain ways. And we talked about Plato's notion of wisdom and how it involved this process of aligning the psyche so as to reduce inner conflict and reduce self-deception by bullshitting ourselves, and that how that enabled us to also achieve one of our meta desires, the desire for inner peace, but how we could also align that reduction in self-deception with getting more in contact with what's real, and that as we practice tracking real patterns in the world, we could then reflectively internalize that back on ourselves. And there was an intimate connection between how we knew the world and knew ourselves. And as we increased our ability to pick up on real patterns, we could increase our self-knowledge, reduce our self-deception, increase our contact with reality, and that would flow in the process of anagoge. And that would bring about the satisfaction of our second meta desire, which is to be in contact with realness. And so Plato has this idea of wisdom as this anagogic process, and we talked about that in connection with his great parable, the parable of the cave. I then pointed out that he had, just as Socrates was lucky to have a great disciple in Plato, Plato was lucky to have a great disciple in Aristotle. And Aristotle is pivotal for us because he lays the foundation for further aspects of a scientific approach to wisdom and meaning, and also for an important formulation of one of the ways in which we deeply connect the self to reality that we're going to talk about when we talk about worldview attunement. So as I mentioned, Aristotle was a student of Plato. He studies with Plato for about 20 years. And then at some point he breaks away from Plato, famously claiming that while I love Plato, I love the truth more. Aristotle remained, and many people would argue this, Gerson, for example, and others, that Aristotle remains in some very important senses a Platonist. But there was an aspect of Plato's work that Aristotle thought was lacking. Plato did not really adequately account for change. So Aristotle was deeply influenced by Plato's account of what made for something real for us, but he thought that Plato could not really explain change very well, and he was going to invent some very important concepts that are going to become integral to our understanding of what it is to be meaningfully connected to reality. Now, Aristotle is very influenced by his father, who is a physician. He's much more of a biologist than a mathematician, so while Plato is much more prone to using mathematical analogies, Aristotle is much more used to using biological analogies. And the word that Aristotle uses for change is actually better translated as growth or development. Aristotle was really interested in how living things grow, how they develop. And that should prick up your ears right away, because part of, I take it, what we often mean when we say we have a meaningful life is that we are growing or developing. In fact, people will often use the word growth as a way of indicating an improvement in the meaning of their life and, in some sense, the developing of wisdom. So Aristotle picks up on Plato's notion of the eidos. So if you remember last time we talked about this, we talked about that a bird is much more than the set of its features. It's not just a beak, it's not just some feathers, it's this gestalt, it's that structural, functional organization such that all the parts function together as a whole, and so what you have is something that acts as a bird. And that pattern, that logos, that eidos, is very hard actually to put into words, but it's very much what does two things for us. It's what makes a bird, and it's also the pattern by which we come to know what a bird is. When we can grasp the structural functional organization, that eidos, then we understand what a bird is. Now, Aristotle was very impressed by that, but he wanted to give it a more dynamical approach. He wanted to talk about it in terms of development. And so he was very interested, as I said, in how things grow. And he noted the role that form had in growth and development. So what he did was he first started by an analogy. So he would use the analogy of artifacts, human-made things, and then use that to try and understand biological things. So, for example, I can have a block of wood, right, and I can make it into a chair, or perhaps a table, or if it's a big enough amount of wood, I can make it into a ship or a boat. And Aristotle asked, what makes the wood behave like a chair as opposed to a table or to a ship? And this is where we get the notion of actuality from. We often use the word actuality, in fact, as a way of talking about realness. It's an actual something, as a way of saying it's a real something, as opposed to a fraud or a simulation. So, what makes a chair act like a chair? Why does the wood act like a chair here, act like a table here, and act like a ship here? And so Aristotle said, well, first of all, this is important change, and it's a good analogy for development. When I'm making a chair, that's somehow analogous for how an organism is growing. So what is it that makes the wood act like a chair here and act like a table here? And his argument was, well, it's the form. Again, where this means eidos, not shape, although you can use shape as an analogy. This is the structural functional organization. The wood is structurally functionally organized in such a way that it will act like a chair, whereas here it will act like a table and here it will act like a ship. Now, Aristotle's point is that it's not that this doesn't play any role, but he invents this really important idea. He invents the idea that the wood is potential. These terms, actual and potential, actually come from Aristotle. We use them every day. We think they're just part of our natural grammar, but they're actually an invention of Aristotle, and we're going to see how important they are. So the idea is wood is potentially a chair, wood is potentially a table, wood is potentially a ship. Now, when that potential has a particular form given to it, then it starts acting like a chair, it starts acting like a table, and acting like a ship. And this is where we get the notion of information from. You put a form into something, and you will actualize its potential. Namely, you will give it a structural functional organization so it will start to act in a particular manner. Now, that's really important. And then what Aristotle argued is, well, what you see in living things is that they are basically doing this for themselves. So if you'll use, I just mean this as an analogy, a living thing is like a chair that is making itself. A chair, imagine that a chair could somehow start to impose a structural functional organization on wood so that it started to turn itself into a chair. That's what a living thing does. I mean, food is potential you. You put food into you, you inform it. There's a code in your DNA that ultimately puts a particular form in it that gives it a structural functional organization that becomes you. Now, of course, this unfolds across time. It doesn't happen like that, and that's why we see it as change and development. Now, this is really important, as we'll see, because it's going to be foundational to understanding a lot about how you connect to the world. So, how are we going to make use of this in talking about the way human beings are connected to reality, the way they develop and grow as cognitive agents? So what I want to do first is to step aside from Aristotle and the axial age and move into current cognitive science and talk about an important way of thinking about development and change, especially the work of Alicia Uraro that was directly and explicitly inspired by this Aristotelian framework. So when we talk about how things change, right, we often have a model that we inherited from the scientific revolution, a model we get from Newton. And this is a model that change occurs because of causal impact. So the standard thing, here's this marker, right? I press it. Why did it move? It moved because I pushed it. It seems so obvious and non-controversial, right? So we give an explanation, what causes it to be, because it was pushed. It was, and the idea of all change and development is there's an event A, and it somehow, right, causes event B, causes event C. Event A precedes B, makes B happen, and then B precedes C, and B makes C happen. So as Newton was engaging in the scientific revolution, this notion of how things happen was becoming prominent in him, and for the people that was going to take up the Newtonian worldview. Now what was very interesting about that, right, is that this seemed to solve a lot of problems. And this was brought out by a famous philosopher, Immanuel Kant, who Alicia Uraro talks about. Kant was interested in why was this Newtonian model becoming so successful. The Aristotelian model had been around for thousands of years. Why was Newton's model overtaking it so rapidly? And what Kant said is, well, this does something very wonderful for us, because what it does is gives us a very simple account of how we explain things. I explain C by showing you how it was preceded by an event B that caused it, and how B was preceded by an event A that caused it. Very nice, linear, clean, and we like seems to, isn't that what's happening? So obvious, right? And again, remember, again and again, I've tried to show you things that seem so obvious, so natural, are actually historical creations. You have to pay attention to how we got where we are. Now, why does this matter? Well, because this prevents a kind of vacuous explanation that can occur. This prevents what are called circular explanations. This line, right, prevents circular explanations. Okay, so circular explanation is when you assume the very thing you're trying to explain in your explanation. So here's a standard kind of model. People often use this without realizing, you know, there's a triangle out here in the world. The light comes into my eye, it goes through nerve pulses, that goes into my consciousness, right? It's somehow projected onto an inner screen, and then there's a triangle there, and then there's a little man inside, and he goes, triangle. Right? And we have updated versions of this, like the central executive and such. Right? This is called a homuncular theory. Homunculus means a little man. Now, when you present it like that, I hope you can all see why this is obviously useless. Because what you should then ask is, well, how does the little man see the little triangle inside? And then what you go is, well, inside the little man's head, there's an even smaller screen with a littler man with a triangle. But how does he see? A triangle, triangle. You see what this is? It's an infinite regress, because you're actually using vision to try and explain vision. Now, please remember this notion of a homuncular fallacy, because that's what this is, because while it's easy to explain, I need you to understand that we fall into it very often when we try and understand and explain ourselves. Okay. That is a circular explanation, because you're using the very thing you're trying to explain in order to explain it. Kant said this Newtonian scheme is wonderful because if you stick to its grammar, if you stick to its rules, the cause has to be an independent event that precedes, right? Then you don't fall into circular explanations. That's amazing. Now, you've got some problems here. What started it all, right? And, you know, maybe God, and then Kant says no, and he's got all his arguments, and I'm not going to get into that right now. Suffice it to say that this became a predominant way of trying to explain how things work. But then Kant encountered a very significant problem. And it's not a coincidence that it has to do with the kinds of things we were talking about with Aristotle, the kinds of things that can grow, living things. Because Kant went out and he saw a tree, right? And this was very problematic for him because trees don't follow this model readily. Because he was looking at it, he was saying, okay, well, what's making the tree? Well, it's the sunlight. Well, how does the sunlight get in? Through the leaves. So, right, what's making the leaves? Well, the tree. So the tree makes the leaves, and the leaves make the tree, so the tree is making the tree. And he coined the term self-organizing. The tree is self-organizing. Now, the problem with that is, right, living things make use of feedback cycles. In a feedback cycle, the output from the system feeds back into the system. The tree makes the leaves, that gathers energy, that goes into the processes that makes the leaves. Living things are self-organizing. They use feedback cycles. But when I try and give an explanation of a feedback cycle, I fall into a circular explanation. And so Kant came to a rather startling conclusion. He came to the conclusion that there could not be a science of living things, that biology was impossible. Now, Kant is is a towering intellect. He's a genius, a philosophical genius. And so you can't just sort of dismiss that. Okay, well, there obviously is biology. What an idiot Kant is. No. You're the one who needs to step back and think, where's the mistake in the argument? Because if there is biology, and it's true that there is, and I agree that there is, right? And that living things use feedback cycles, which they necessarily do. They're self-organizing, which they necessarily are. And when I try and trace out the causation, I get into circular explanation, which seems like a necessary thing. And circular explanations are vacuous and empty. Then where is Kant going wrong? And this is what Alicia Uraro takes up. And she said, actually, for a very long time, we had no way of solving this problem. And so there was a huge gap between our biology and our physics. Now again, why are we caring about this? Because we need to, if we're going to understand Aristotle, if we're going to deeply understand what we mean when we talk about that we are living things that grow and develop, and that growth and development is integral to our meaning and our sense of who and what we are, our personal identity, that if we cannot give an answer to this problem, we cannot understand fundamentally who and what we are and what the hell we are talking about when we talk about how important growth and development are to us. Because that language will forever be separate from any kind of scientific understanding. So, where's this going wrong? This seems just like living things are feedback cycles, self-organizing. They grow, they develop, they make themselves, right? So what has to go? Well, this. Now, before you jump and say, but that's just what causation is. Think about the fact that we actually know that Newton's ultimately wrong, right? Newton doesn't work with relativity. Newton doesn't work at the quantum level. So we know that we shouldn't be absolutely committed to this view. Now, Uraro actually makes use of an important idea from Aristotle to solve this problem. So, she's going to use Aristotle in order to explain a new and powerful way of talking about growth and development and self-organizing processes, which is known as dynamical systems theory. So Aristotle, first of all, makes a distinction between causes and constraints. So to get at that distinction, let's go back to what seems so obvious. Okay, here's the marker. I push it. Why did it move? And immediately, the Newtonian grammar just comes into place. It moved because you pushed it. And then you might step outside of physics and say, well, I wanted to push it, but that's not what I'm asking. Because it, right? It could also just be that some other object bumped into this and it moved. Why else did it move? Okay, so think about what has to also be true in order for this to move. There has to be empty space, relatively empty space in front of the marker. This has to have a particular shape to it. This has to have a particular shape to it. Those aren't events, right? Those are conditions. Causes are events that make things happen. Constraints, right, aren't events, they're conditions. They don't make things happen, they make things possible. And there's a big difference between a condition and an event. The Newtonian way of thinking has us so fixated on this, so foregrounded on this, that we're not seeing this anymore. You see, Aristotle, because of his Platonic view, actually considers this more important. Why? Because when I talk about a structural, functional organization, when I talk about a pattern, I'm talking about this. This is where you will find form. This is where it's sometimes called the formal cause. This is where you will find the structural, functional organization. Right? Conditions are structurally, functionally organized such that motion for this is possible. Now, this is important because this is, of course, actuality, and this is where we get potentiality. When I shape possibility, that's what I mean when I say something is potential. I mean that possibility has been shaped by constraints so that these events are more possible than these events. Okay, so we're going to do more, but let's stop here and let's see how this is already starting to solve the problem of talking about the tree and its self-organization. So in a tree, you've got a bunch of events happening, biochemical events. What they're doing is they're actually causing a particular, right, form or formula or structural functional organization. Now think about it. Why do trees grow the way they do? Why do they grow like this? Why do they spread out their branches? Why do their leaves spread out? Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to change the possibility of a photon hitting a chlorophyll molecule. The structure of the tree shapes the possibility of the events. So the events, right, cause this structure, and then, right, they cause it, but this then constrains the events. So look at me, I'm a living thing. I've got a bunch of events happening in me, and that creates a structural functional organization. That organization creates an internal environment in which the probability of events is dramatically altered. So events that have very low probability happening out there have a high probability of happening in here. And events that have a very high probability of happening out there have a very low probability of happening in here. And that's what it is to be a living thing. The events, right, cause a structure, a structural functional organization, an eidos, a form, and then that constrains the events. Now this is not a circular explanation, because I'm talking about two very different kinds of things. I'm talking about actuality and potentiality. Now, it's important to realize that the discussion of possibility, many of you were saying, oh, this is like, oh, it's so abstract, and what does this? This is actually integral to science. Okay? Science depends on there being real potential. The potentiality is a real thing, right? So, here's the object moving around. Right? It's on the ground. Look at all this kinetic energy. Look at it moving. Oh, it stopped. Did I destroy all that energy? Where did the kinetic energy go? You can't destroy energy. Well, the kinetic energy has become potential energy. If the principle of the conservation of mass and energy is real, then potentiality is real. Look at this. Look at something from Newton. Force equals mass times acceleration. Is that an event? Is it, oh, that's happening over there right now? Does it happen every Tuesday at 4 o'clock? This isn't an event. This is, right, how things are shaped. It puts a limit on what's possible in the world. Talking about real potentiality is not talking fictional or abstract. It's a way of talking that's integral to our current science. Okay. We're still not done, though, because Yararo points out that there are two kinds of constraints, so our explanations can become even more refined. There are constraints that make a form of event, a type of event, more possible. She calls those enabling constraints. Right? And then there are constraints that reduce the possibilities, reduce the options for a system. These are the selected or selective constraints. Now this is going to give us a very powerful way of understanding development. Let's use it the way Yararo does to talk about one of the most significant theories of development and change, one of the great hallmarks of science. In fact, it's a foundational theory for the science of biology, which of course is the theory of natural selection, the theory of Darwinian evolution. Because the theory of Darwinian evolution is probably the first dynamical systems theory in science, and it is a theory that is designed precisely to account for growth and development. Obviously not within an individual, but across speciation. Okay, so let's take a look at the theory. So what you're looking for, first of all, is there has to be a feedback cycle for, right, any dynamical system theory, because we're talking about a process that's self-organizing. So what's the feedback cycle that evolution talks about? Of course, well, it's sexual reproduction. Where do goats come from? Other goats. Goats are produced, there's the product, and then it feeds back into the system and becomes the producer. Makes more goats, that make more goats, that makes more goats. That's why we call it reproduction. It's a feedback cycle. So what did Darwin realize? Well, he realized that there were selective constraints operating on that. There were conditions in the environment that reduced the options for organism. That's right. So what's those conditions? Scarcity of resources. Okay? So I've been looking at some of the theories of early life, and there's an argument by several biologists that there's no evolution for about probably 800,000 years or so, because there's no scarcity of resources when life first evolves. So life is static because there's no scarcity of resources. Scarcity of resources means there's competition. Scarcity of resources means not everything can live. And so that reduces the options for the system. Okay, so selection, reducing options. But that's not all that's going on, right? If that was the case, everything would just die. Evolution would end. And that can happen, extinction events. But there's something else. There's enabling constraints that open up the system, open up the options. So look around. Look at me, look at other people. there's variation. There's considerable variation.
Akira.
Variation increases the options. So look what's going on here. You've got this feedback cycle. As it's cycling through, you've got the selective conditions reducing the options that are available, and then the variation opening them up. And you can think of it almost like an accordion model. The variation opens it up, and then as it cycles, the selective constraint pushes it down. And then from there, it opens up again, and then it gets pushed back down. And then it opens up again and gets pushed back down. And as it cycles like this, it's constantly changing in a way to be better fitted to the environment. That's evolution, right? It's a kind of circular. Evolve is related to words like revolve. It's this revolution with change. Now notice, what I'm trying to get you to see is, like, first of all, this is important. I mean, I wish I was Charles Darwin. This is one of the great theories. He gets to sail around the world. I mean, what a life. He gets to sail around the world, go to some amazing places, and then he comes back and makes a world-changing theory. It's amazing. But notice how much this Darwinian theory that is at the foundation of biology, how much it is beholden to Aristotle. How much it depends on Aristotelian ideas. Okay. Now, Uraro talks about this as a virtual governor. So a governor is any device that sort of limits what you can do on a system. Like if you have a governor on a steam engine, right, it sets the range, it limits the range at which it can cycle. She calls it a virtual governor because it's not an actual machine, it's the shaping of possibility. She stops there, and work that I've done with Leo Ferraro and Anderson Todd and Richard Wu, we think she should continue to finish the metaphor. This is a virtual generator because it's a set of conditions that are generating options for a self-organizing system. And here's the idea. When you put a virtual governor systematically together with a virtual generator such that you're systematically regulating a feedback cycle, this whole thing is a virtual engine. Because when you attach a governor to a generator, you get a virtual engine. So this is what a dynamical system theory is. A dynamical system theory is basically a theory that lays out the virtual engine. It shows you how there's a feedback cycle and why that's not just random and chaotic, why it produces growth and development precisely because there's a systematic relationship between a set of enabling and selective constraints. Now, all of this is very, very Aristotelian. So let's now take it back to Aristotle. Because Aristotle was interested, now he doesn't use the dynamical systems language, that's our language. But this language was directly inspired by, powered by Aristotle. So using it backwards to try and connect Aristotle to our current understanding, I do not think is anachronistic. So Aristotle is interested in our development. He's going to add something that was missing from the Socratic notion of wisdom. Remember, the Socratic notion was trying to overcome self-deception. And then Plato adds a whole structural theory of the psyche to explain how we overcome self-deception, how we become wise and achieve wisdom. But what's missing in the account of wisdom and meaning, according to Aristotle, if I can use this language, is what's missing is an account of growth and development. How does wisdom develop? How does meaning develop? Well, this is where we get something that we talk about and we use as in our language, but we don't, I think, get the depth of what Aristotle's talking about. There's an aspect of who and what you are that's fundamentally connected to your projects of meaning and your project of wisdom. You often might have used this term or related terms, but do you really know what you're talking about? And this is the notion of your character. Now, first of all, your character isn't your personality, because if we're going to use these terms strictly, you're born with your personality. Personality is part of your general constitution. It's what's given to you by the biology and the environment that you have no choice over, right? But your character is that aspect of you that you can cultivate. Now, you can either cultivate it unconsciously, surreptitiously, indirectly, or you can cultivate it more explicitly. But what is your character? When we say that somebody's acting out of character, we're usually making, and this is important, we're usually making either an existential or moral criticism of them. When we say Peter's acting out of character, we often will mean something like he's normally honest. He's normally honest. He normally has the virtue of honest. Notice the connection here, by the way. Virtue, and we've been talking about a virtual engine that is not happenstance. When you're talking about a virtue, you're not talking about an event, you're talking about, again, a set of conditions that have been cultivated systematically in somebody. Now that points to something, that when we're talking about character, I'm going to suggest that what we're talking about is what is the virtual engine on a person's development. What system of constraints have you identified with? And what system of constraints have you internalized that regulate your development? Let's ask a Socratic question. Let's do something that Socrates would do. We spend a lot of time on our appearance. We spend a lot of time on our status. How much time did you spend today on your character? How much? If it is the virtual engine that is regulating your growth and development, you should be, of course, spending a lot of time on your character. But are you? Now, Aristotle proposed ways of trying to cultivate your character. I would argue that his method, his famous method of the golden mean, is a way of trying to get you to set up conditions to cultivate your character. So, for example, what is courage? We would all like to be more courageous, I take it. Well, Aristotle proposed that it's the golden mean, not the average, that's a misunderstanding, right? Because it's golden mean, between two things. Of course, you can be a coward. You can somehow be defective by having a deficiency, but you can also be foolhardy. Right? Just running into traffic doesn't make you courageous. What you're always trying to do is you're trying to set up a system where you're paying attention, where you lack the enabling constraints, where you don't have enough generation, and also conditions where you lack the selective constraints. You're too broadly, you have too many options that you're identifying as courage. What you have to do is you have to train yourself. You have to cultivate your character by engaging in practices that will slowly, over time, create a virtual engine. Because you are a self-organizing process. You are the source of your actions that modify the environment that then feeds back into you and changes you. And then you produce your actions, and then the environment feeds back and changes you. Here's the question I ask you. Are you just letting that run? Or are you trying to rationally and reflectively cultivate your character, structure a virtual engine so that that self-organizing process is growing and developing in an optimal fashion? Aristotle takes the question, and we use this, we even use, and I'm not saying we use it trivially, but we don't get the depth of what we're saying. One of the most trenchant criticisms we can make of ourselves, of other people, is this. Listen to my language. Listen to it. He's not living up to his potential. Part of what makes your life meaningful is that you have cultivated character that allows you to actualize your potential. You've created a virtual engine that regulates your development in a way in which you grow up. It's a constantly in which self-organization has been regulated and shaped into self-improvement so that your potential is fully realized. So Aristotle brings in this notion then of development and growth as part of what it means to have a meaningful life. He brings in a new aspect to the notion of wisdom. Wisdom is gaining the ability to cultivate virtues, to create your virtual engine, a set of virtues that basically is regulating your growth and development so that you actualize your potential. Again, think about it. What are you doing to cultivate your character? Because Aristotle points out there's a deep form of foolishness that comes from a lack of character. He calls it akrasia, which we poorly translate as weakness of the will because we're all post-Protestants and we think the will is our central thing, even though increasingly there's scientific evidence that the notion of will or willpower is a defunct idea. We should give it up, right? So what's akrasia? Akrasia is when you know what the right thing to do is. You know what the right thing to do is. And we talked about this, remember, with the chocolate cake, but you don't do the right thing. And here's where we can sort of put Aristotle and Plato together. Plato gives us this sort of story about how we have to structure the psyche. But Aristotle gives us a much more penetrating analysis of what that structural functional organization is. Here's what Aristotle would say, why you're behaving foolishly. Ignorance is when you do the wrong thing because you don't know. Part of what foolishness is when you know what the right thing is and you still do the wrong thing. Here's Aristotle's answer. You do the wrong thing because although you have the right beliefs, notice again the impotence of belief here, you don't have sufficient character. You have not trained things, you've not trained skills, you've not trained sensitivities, you have not created a virtual engine that is regulating your development and growth such that you will live up to your potential. You will actualize yourself and do the right thing. So, we're starting to see, again, the deep grammar of what we talk about when we talk about meaning. And we notice now that there's this developmental aspect to it. What is it to live up to your potential? I mean, that's a phrase we use. What is it you're saying when you say that about somebody? Why does it matter so much? So Aristotle would say, let's go back to the analogy. Please always remember that it's an analogy. Let's go back to the analogy of a man-made thing. Okay? How is it when we know when something has been well made? What makes something a good knife? Right? Well, when it has a structural, functional organization, right, that allows it to fulfill its purpose. So knives are for cutting. If I've taken the potential in the metal and organized it the right way, structured it the right way, it will actually function to cut very well. Right? And notice that this is a word that's also deeply associated with our sense of what it is to have meaning. So Aristotle asks, well, what can we do with this analogy? Human beings aren't made the way knives are made. We're self-making. And here's an important idea. We're self-making. We're not just self-organizing. The term that Francisco Varela and Evan Thompson have generated to talk about this is we are autopoetic. We are self-making things. So you're different from a tornado. A tornado is self-organizing, but a tornado will move, its behavior can be rapidly self-destructive. It will move into conditions that destroy it. You're self-organized in such a way that you have a structural functional organization that allows you to seek out conditions. So the tornado does not seek out the conditions that will protect and promote its own self-organization. It's not self-making. You are self-making. So here's the interesting thing, and this is a brilliant idea that Eric Pearl brings out in his book, Thinking Being, right? In living things, right, the purpose of the thing is its structural functional organization. It's a self-making thing. So what your purpose, your function is to enhance your structural functional organization. It's like, oh, wow, that's just a problem, you'll say, with philosophy. It's also abstract. What does that mean specifically? Well, for Aristotle, it means paying attention to the fact that you are a rational, reflective creature. You're unlike a plant. A plant has this, but all it basically does is actualize its ability to sort of digest. So let's take a look at this. We have inorganic matter, right? And then it gets a particular, it's informed, and that makes, right, a living thing. And that living things can get a more complex structure that make them self-moving. That's what an animal is. An animal isn't a mammal. An animal is a self-moving thing. And then some of those self-moving things have structural functional organizations, here's in here, for example, that take that self-moving and really actualize it. Remember we talked about that the word psyche, where we get our word psychology, mind, originally meant your capacity for self-moving. And we came to apply it to the mind because the mind is that part of you that is the most self-moving, the most self-making. You're a mental thing, a psychological thing. But is that enough? No, we're getting from Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, you can optimize that. You can take charge of that. You, unlike other organisms, you can do the actual revolution on yourself. You're capable of cultivating your own character rationally and deliberately. You can become, right, a rational thing. To live up to your potential is to make sure you have cultivated a character that takes you as high up this hierarchy as you can go. That's how you live up to your potential. Somebody who lived only as a plant would be a debauched, failed, degraded human being. Somebody that lived only as an animal, unreflectively, impulsively, would be a debauched, failed human being. But the argument continues. You say, of course, all the way up here. You must cultivate your character so that you, as much as possible, actualize your potential for being a rational, moral human being. That's the hallmark for Aristotle. You become a good person if you actualize, if you inform your being with a virtual engine that realizes those things that are distinctive of our humanity. What makes us different from the plants, the animals, the other creatures that just have minds? What makes us different? We understand that we have always, and we still do understand ourselves in contrast to the other things we find around ourselves. Why am I more valuable than this table? Why do I matter more? Because there are things that can be found in rational beings, things that we find intrinsically valuable and important that cannot be found in merely mental things, and all the way down. What are those characteristics that are unique to us? Well, here's where Aristotle gives the axial revolution answer. Your capacity for overcoming self-deception, your capacity for cultivating your character, for realizing wisdom, and for enhancing the structure of your psyche and your contact with reality. That's what rational means. This sounds, if I hadn't said all this, what I'm going to say now would sound trite. Your purpose is to become as fully human as possible. How are you cultivating your character to do so? This is what Aristotle is going to ask you again and again. How much of your life is dedicated to creating a virtual engine that realizes your rational capacities, those things that make you most human in contrast to all the other things around you? So, Aristotle has developed this very impressive theory of wisdom, character, growth, and development. One of the things we could use today is to go back and make use of this so we can reanimate, rejuvenate these terms that have become tired and superficial. We have no alternative terms for describing our lives, for the meaning in our life. We talk about purpose and living up to our potential and growth and development, and which blah, 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 because we don't have any depth to these terms. One of the things we can use Aristotle to do is to go back and deepen what those terms mean for us, rejuvenate what they mean for us. But I want to continue on and to talk about this development that's occurring in the axial revolution. And I want to talk about how Aristotle helped further the historical process by which he contributed to our cultural grammar of what it is when we're talking about meaning, purpose, wisdom, self-transcendence. And so what I want to look at next time when we're together is I want to look at Aristotle's account of a worldview and what a worldview is and why it matters so deeply to our self-understanding and our existential meaning. Thank you very much for your time.
New York City.
MEANINGWAVE, what's on my son? Make some noise for Vervaeke John. Yeah! Vervaeke John and Akira The Don. Like your boy Marvin said, what the f is going on? Whoa! Ah! Yo, that was fire. That was flames. How you doing out there? What's cracking out there by Joe? Gang giggity. But Mason says legend. Timothy Tagato, what's cracking, baby? Shouts out to Timothy Tagato, appreciate the support, baby. Dynamic wrist, virtual wrist, cook, chef, knife, whoop. Cook, chef, knife, whoop. What makes a good knife? What makes a good cook? What makes an amazing? Yo, Matthew Coates says, I wonder if he ever watches these. I know, baby. He was very excited I was doing them. Right, he wrote and said he was. He writes very lovely emails, you know. Vervaeke John, what's going on? Yeah, that was epic. I nearly went into a double bill. I nearly did. You know that? You nearly had a double bill, but I thought, nah. We've got to percolate on that a little bit. Let's percolate on that a little bit. You know what I mean? Andy Burrows says 2021 Burning Man is going to be nuts. Shouts out to that virtual governor. Says Nick Mayoga. Who else heard Goggins when your boy was talking about that governor? Yo. Word XP says plants have secret conscious reflection, I believe. Yo, they scream, don't they? I heard about that. They screaming. What was that book? I read a great book one time. And I was talking about how we evolved from a plant consciousness to this thing. Woo! Timothy Delgado says Glaciers Freestyle. Sammy Scott, hot fire, good stuff. Word XP wrote a bunch of notes. Good. What's your notes? D-Man says just stunned. Mason says MAZ on fire. Timothy Delgado says positive rest. Word XP says thanks for this series. What did you guys learn? Mikhail, there's no difference between the chef and the chef's knife. The chef from the chef's knife, they're one and the same. They're one and the same. Except the chef is self-organizing, you know? Self-creating. Self-perpetuating. Luke Cap, whoop! Polo, hey Akira, strange request. Can you wish my girlfriend relief from her cramps? Well, it depends. Do we want your girlfriend to be relieved of her cramps? Of course we do. Yo, Polo, shout out to Polo's girlfriend. Let's all gather together for a little second. Completely, off topic, obviously, but let's focus our energies for a little second on Polo's girlfriend's cramps. Yeah! Hardy Owen says, listening to Johnny V makes me excited and ready for the roaring 2020s. Do you know what I mean? Yo, me too, baby. I feel the same way. Baby. Them roaring 20s. We're just cranking up, Cranking up. About to go in on them roaring 20s. I am excited. And what's nice is we're going to be going in with all this, as a basis from which to operate, as a foundation from which to pivot into greatness. Because what's on the other side? Greatness. That's right. Paolo, has your girlfriend's cramps stopped yet? Did we get rid of him? Boom! Robert Easley says, I learned that we speak in artifices that we assume are natural. Isn't that a crazy thing? So much of the stuff we just assume, that's just how it is, how it always has been. Nah, some fool invented that shit. And everyone said, all right, that guy's right, and then build on top of that, you know? Kept happening. Timothy Delgado says, heal. Lynn McLaughlin said, I learned a lesson at the right time. Members Times in the house. I took a drive for the stream, and it was an amazing car drive. Word XP says, I didn't know that Aristotle invented the word potential. That stood out. He emphasized he made a lot of keywords, it seems. Dan Frank, you can take that to the bank, says, loving this series. Thanks for keeping it going. Cedric says, don't like driving and missing the chat. Polo says, thank you so much, I love you. Hey, I guess it worked. Shouts out to Polo and Polo's girl. What's up, Maria? Thank you for the Polka video. Nick Mayaga, I learned that what I've been doing naturally actually is part of natural mind sharpening behavior. Hey, ain't that the thing? You're here to develop that character. Either way he says that. I like his take on that, you know. It's a shared, many schools of thought share that, right? Expressed it in different ways. Is it Manly P. Hall says about you're here to build your immortal soul, you know, one chakra at a time. Like your spine is like each bit of the spine, what is it? Is like a piece of your immortal soul. You're building that up. J Palm, welcome to level 1, baby. Welcome to the channel. Use your emojis wisely. Whoa! What's up, Rodrigo Stall? What's up, J Palm says, feels great to be back. It's great to have you here, baby. Word XP says, I like how he talked about how trees are made. Seems like smart people like to discuss or make music about that. Yes, it does. Trees come out. Yeah! Everybody knows that. You ever get a thing that you learn from a MEANINGWAVE record and then you just assume everybody else knows it because you've internalized it and you forget that you didn't know it yourself like a week ago? You ever do that? 'Cause I do that all the time. I do that all the time. Members Time says, I have a problem with listening while I type, so I don't get active during MEANINGWAVE, Crisis, and Doonwave so that I can get the full dose. Lol, love you all though. Members Time, you don't have a problem with listening while typing. Nobody can listen and type at the same time. People say they can, but they're lying. I say it to my wife all the time. She'll be talking to me and I'll be typing. I'll be thinking I'm listening, but I'm not really, am I? And she gets annoyed with me. Like, I'm listening. You said... Nah, Members Time, you just smart and human and normal. Smart and human and normal. That's all. Zach Sauser said, things I internalize and think everyone knows. The Rasputin song. Yeah, I know what you mean, right? You assume everybody knows Boney M. Everybody knows that rah, 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 Rasputin, Russia's greatest love machine. A lot of people out there bereft of that knowledge. A lot of people do not have that in their armory. That has not passed through their Byzantine conduit, you know? Yeah, it sucks for them. Murphy Stuff says, tell that to the transcriptionists across the land, Akira The Don, they must type and listen at the same time. Well, they're typing what they listen, aren't they? It's very, very different, Murphy Stuff. Don't you try to get smart with me. Trying to get smart up in here. Yo. Mason says psychotechnology merge. That's right. It's that merge instrumental. It's one of those great MEANINGWAVE records. You know, if you haven't heard this is the Elon album. People say, Akira The Don, you should do an Elon album. I did. That's the thing that I did. It's very good. You should listen to it. What's up, J Palm? Hey, yo, anyway. On that bombshell, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to give you all time to percolate on what you just listened to, you know, what you just experienced. Think about that shit. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. CT on TWITCH for that morning party. I think I'm going to crank it back up again tomorrow. We were on like extreme turbo party levels for a bit, then we pulled down a little over Christmas for whatever reason. There were Christmas streams, I guess, and more people were sleeping or whatever. This time of year, some people would be missing the streams because they'd be sleeping, and, like eating and shit. You know what I mean? But I think I'm gonna crank it tomorrow morning in like a ungodly fashion. You know? Zach Stouser says, on that bombshell, Akira thinks he's Jeremy Clarkson now, lol. That's the Alan Partridge reference, you ingrate. Get your British references correct, Zach. How could you? Knowing me, knowing you, knowing me, Akira, knowing you, Zach. Aha. What's up, Lynn? Says, so awesome, thanks. Hey, thank you, Lynn. Thank you for being here. What's up, Atkins Villiers? What's up, Dan Frank? Shouts out to everybody locked in live, and of course, shouts out to everybody across space. Also time, thank you to everyone who supported. Thank you, Timothy Delgato, Word XP, and Jay Palm. If you want to support the wave, there's a lot you can do. You know, you could go to meaningwave.com and get a very, very epic hoodie like the one I'm wearing. It is so luscious and soft and cool. It says Meaning Wave on the pouch. It's got a pouch, you know, you could keep a kangaroo in it. If you happen to have a small kangaroo in the vicinity, you could put it in the pouch of your hoodie. It says Meaning Wave on it, and it's soft. Also, people write to me all the time. They say, Akira The Don, how best can I support the wave? I would love to make a donation. I say, hey, whatever's easiest for you, baby. We've got a Cash App, we've got a Venmo, we've got a Bitcoin. All of that, you can find it at meaningwave.com. /pages/donate. It's also in the description of this broadcast. If you like downloading music, hey, we've got a Bandcamp. You can go there and download all the music. If you like playlists, hey, we got some of those too. We got good playlists, you know. You hear my son quacking in the background, can you hear that? It's his birthday on January 6th. He's gonna be 8. Imagine that, imagine having an 8-year-old in the house. That's shit crazy. Mind blown, baby. Anyway, thank you all for being here. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is the final Dune. The very final Dune. The final Dune. Isn't that crazy? The final Dune tomorrow. That will be, shit, it would be a lot of Dune. It'll be a lot of Dune that we done doing. Tomorrow's going to be epic. It's going to be epic, baby. Mudfire Stuff says, I found Zion 2012 on SoundCloud and posted a link to Discord. Hey, you detective. You found that rare Akira The Don mixtape that I haven't deleted yet. And you posted a link to the Discord. You detective. God bless. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for being here. I'm Akira The Don, and this was Meaning, Crisis, and Chill with Vervaeke Don and Akira The Don, Vervaeke John and Akira The Don, Vervaeke John and Akira The Don. What's going on? Go follow Vervaeke John on Twitter. The link is in the description. Find him in other places. Find his YouTube. He does meditations and things on the YouTube. You can go along and get yourself a weekly guided meditation, or is it daily? He does it a lot, you know. He does it a lot. 3, 2, 1, bye. God rest ye merry gentlefolk. Let nothing you dismay.